right, everyone. So welcome back. We are in Genesis chapter 6, where God tells Noah to build the ark. So we'll start reading together in Genesis chapter 6. It says, "Now it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown." So, as the earth's population began to grow, the sons of God saw the beautiful daughters of men and married whoever, and as many of them as they wanted. The Hebrew phrase translated sons of God here occurs only here in Genesis 6, verse 2 and verse 4, and in Job chapter 1, verse 6, in Job chapter 2, verse 1, and in Job chapter 38, verse 7. The sons of God, as they're translated in Job, in those three Job passages, in each one of those instances, Job 1:6, Job 2:1, and Job 38:7, the sons of God in Job, those are all a reference to angels. So the question is it a reference to angels here in Genesis? Just because it's used as referring to angels in Job doesn't necessarily mean that it's referring to angels in Genesis, though it could be. There's a few ideas to what the sons of God is a reference to here in Genesis, and I'm going to share three of them with you. One idea is that the sons of God is referring to something other than humankind, since they are distinguished from men. So that this would be the idea that they are referring to angels, or at least angels in some sense. So that's one idea. It's something other than humankind because they are distinguished from men, from humankind. The second idea is that the sons of God are a reference to Seth's descendants, and the daughters of men are a reference to Cain's descendants. That's the second idea. A third idea, at least the third one that I'll share with you, is that the sons of God refer to powerful tyrants who, due to their extraordinary strength and perhaps their extraordinary size, did whatever they wanted to do. So, which one of these ideas is it? And I don't know that I have a concrete answer for you here, but it is interesting that in Genesis 6, verse 3, only has God addressing his spirit striving with man, who is flesh, as God emphasizes there in verse 3. Also, there were giants on the earth in this time. Nephilim, in the English Standard Version, it occurs in Numbers chapter 13, verse 33. There were giants on the earth during this time, and the children born to the sons of God and the daughters of men, our passage here in Genesis tells us, are mentioned as being mighty men and men of renown. The text doesn't say here in Genesis that the giants and the sons of God are one and the same, though they could be. I'm really not sure which one of these three ideas it is. There was clearly something different about these sons of God, though. Their children were extraordinary warriors, well known in this time period, and their actions among the daughters of men was met with the Lord's displeasure and a promise of judgment. So which one is it? I would invite you to study that a bit further, but those were a few of the ideas, just kind of giving you some things to think on, some things to chew on here. They are distinguished from men. Very well could be angels. It may just be a reference to these very powerful, very wicked, maybe very large people who produce mighty warriors who did wicked things and lived however they want. You've got to look into that a little bit further. And so, continuing on, though, in our text, that's just something kind of a side note, something interesting to think about. But as we continue on, it says, then the Lord, this is picking back up in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5 is where we're at. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thought of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. So we're told that wickedness and evil completely consumed the thoughts of mankind. You know, we often like to talk about, and I don't know if complain is the right word, because it is, God's people should be bothered by the wickedness that we see in the world around us. 2 Peter chapter 2, talking about righteous Lot, how his soul was vexed by the sin that he saw around him every day. As God's people, sin should bother us. It should bother us. And so sometimes I think when we talk about how bad the world is today, we're just merely voicing that what we see, the sin all around us, the wickedness around us, it bothers us. But we talk about how bad the world is today. But I don't believe that even what we see around us today, I don't believe it was as bad as it was in Noah's day. God goes out of his way to emphasize in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5, that evil was the only thing on these people's minds. Saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth. Every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. God is emphasizing just how evil and wicked these people had become. And it says that the New King James uses the word that the Lord was sorry. The word here for sorry, it means a sigh or to breathe strongly. So the image here is it's as if God looked at all the evil and how mankind was totally consumed by it, and he just lets out this huge, sorrowful, angry sigh is the picture. That's the meaning behind this word for sorry. It's as if you see all of this happening, and it's just this, we might almost say like a sigh of frustration. I suppose that's getting to the meaning of this. It's heading in the right direction, but that's kind of the idea of what this word means. Earlier, God had said in verse 3 that the days of mankind were numbered, 120 years, he said in verse 3. Now, here in Genesis chapter 6, verse 7, God says what he plans to do. He's going to destroy everything from the face of the earth. He's going to wipe the slate clean, so to speak. Over in, I mentioned 2 Peter a few minutes ago, but over in 2 Peter chapter 2, beginning with verse 4, God talks about how he is able to bring judgment on the righteous and also bring judgment on the unrighteous and deliver the righteous. It says beginning in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4, For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of eight people, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood on the world of the ungodly, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them to destruction, making them an example to those who afterward would live ungodly, and delivered righteous Lot, who was oppressed by the filthy conduct of the wicked. For that righteous man dwelling among them tormented his righteous soul from day to day by seeing and hearing their lawless deeds. The Lord did all of that, brought punishment and judgment upon the wicked and the ungodly, and delivered the righteous. Then the Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of temptations and to reserve the unjust under punishment for the day of judgment, and especially those who walk according to the flesh in the lust of uncleanness and despise authority. They are presumptuous, self-willed. They are not afraid to speak evil of dignitaries. And Peter keeps going, but making this point. God knows how to bring judgment upon the unrighteous. He also, at the same time, knows how to deliver the righteous. And it says here in Genesis chapter 6, we go back to Genesis chapter 6, verse 8, it says, "But Noah found grace," or found favor, "in the eyes," or in the sight of the Lord. When the Lord starts talking about how he is going to destroy everything he has made, you really want to hear your name mentioned in the same breath with God's grace, with God's favor. You want to be among those who have the favor and the grace of God, and that's exactly where Noah is mentioned in this chapter. Now, picking back up in Genesis chapter 6, verse 9, now God is going to speak a little bit more about Noah, and he's going to give Noah commands about what he must do to save himself and his family. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. And Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. Noah walked with God the same way Enoch, his great-grandfather, had done. While the rest of the earth was corrupt, was filled with violence, and was thinking of evil continually, Noah was just. He did what was right in God's sight. All flesh had chosen to take the path away from God, but Noah is walking with God, not away from God, not rebelling against God. He is walking with God. So God says to Noah, "The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and outside with pitch. And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, its height 30 cubits. You shall make a window for the ark, and you shall finish it to a cubit from above, and set the door of the ark in its side. You shall make it with lower, second, and third decks. And behold, I myself am bringing flood waters on the earth, to destroy from under heaven all flesh in which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall go into the ark, you and your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing, of all flesh, you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, and of every creeping thing of the earth after its kind, 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. And you shall take for yourself of all food that is eaten, and you shall gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them." So God said that he would destroy the earth and the people with it. Yet, he was going to provide a way of salvation, a way to be saved from the coming destruction. The flood was going to be brought upon the earth by God himself, and he gives very specific instructions to Noah regarding the ark's construction. He tells him to build it from gopher wood. A certain kind of wood had to be used, to make rooms inside the ark, to cover it inside and outside with pitch, to waterproof it. It had to be 300 cubits long, which was about 450 feet. It needed to be 50 cubits wide, which was about 75 feet wide. 30 cubits tall, which was about 45 feet tall. A window that was set 1.5 feet from the top. It needed to have a door in the side, and it needed to have 3 decks, a lower, middle, and upper deck. God also gave specific instructions about what was to be done by Noah and his family. They were to go into the ark, and God promised to establish his covenant with Noah. God had made a covenant back in Genesis 3, verse 15, the seed of woman who would crush the head of the serpent. And God says, I will establish that with you. That promise is going to come through you and your family, Noah. He also tells Noah that they were to bring in animals, and they were to keep them alive. They were to gather food for themselves and for the animals. And so, chapter 6 concludes by saying, "Thus Noah did. According to all that God commanded him, so he did." Now, I want to wrap it up by asking you this question here at the end of from the end of chapter 6. Would we say that it was important that Noah did according to all that God commanded him? Did it matter to Noah being saved from the flood that he did what God told him to do? I think we would agree, well, certainly yes. Now, did Noah earn or merit or deserve his salvation by obeying God? Well, no. Noah found grace. There's favor in God's sight. He didn't deserve it. It was grace. But did Noah's obedience play a part, have a role to play in his salvation? Well, undeniably, the answer to that question is yes. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 7, speaking of Noah, says, "By faith Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, he prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is according to faith." By faith Noah, knowing what God had told him and having a fear, a reverence, knowing that what God told him would come to pass, Noah prepared an ark for the saving of his household. By faith, he built the ark that God told him to build for the saving of his household. Our obedience to God does not merit, does not earn, does not cause us to deserve to be saved by God. But when God tells us, you do this, you must do this, here is what you must do, then we have an obligation. If we are going to respond by faith, we must do what God has said. And so there's Genesis chapter 6. God tells Noah to build the ark, and Lord willing, as we keep going, in chapter 7, Noah and his family are going to build the ark, and they're going to go into it just as God had said. I look forward to continuing that study along with you next time.